Well, thank you very, very much, June, and good evening to everyone. It's great to see you all here, and lots of lively conversations that are going on at our reception and during dinner, and sorry to stop those conversations while we have a little bit of a chat here. I am just delighted to have the opportunity to spend some time with you all at this Tea Summit here. My thanks to you, June, as well as to President Simon and their colleagues at Michigan State University. And by the way, go Spartans, you know, in the NCAA, even though St. John's didn't get in, but oh well. And also to our own Jim Spohr here at IBM for bringing this terrific idea to fruition here. You know, this is, as June said, a very, very timely event, and no matter what field they enter, I think our next generation of leaders are going to need to have a multidisciplinary education. It needs to be data-driven, and you'll hear more about that. Very collaborative versus tops-down command and control. And also, they have to be adept at managing change. And I'm certain that your discussions here will plant those seeds for some very, very fruitful new partnerships and new ideas for how to best prepare that next generation for the new world that they will be leading here. I thought that I'd share just a few perspectives with you this evening on three major shifts that are transforming not only technology, but also global businesses, and also the implications of those shifts and those trends for today's students. And there are really three words, if you remember three words: data, cloud, and engagement. So let's start with data first. And you've, I'm sure, been talking about this. You heard a little bit about it a little earlier, but this is the phenomenon right now that's happening. Big data analytics. Everywhere you go, big data analytics. And every discussion, again, you know, starts with the changes that are occurring in business and society that now begin with data. Right? All about data. So data promises what we would refer to as the 21st century. It promises to be for the 21st century what steam power was for the 18th century, and electricity was for the 19th century, and oil was for the 20th century. So this is the world's new natural resource, data. The world is generating about data at about a rate of 2.5 billion gigabytes a day. 2.5 billion. 80% of all the data in the world has been created just in the past 2 years alone. 80% of the data in the world. And it comes from many different sources, lots of different sources, from images, from audio, from billions of RFID tags and sensors, and from billions of blogs, texts, tweets, you know, Instagrams, and so forth. So we are literally awash in data, awash in data. And as a result, just about everything and every client that I meet with already has some sort of a big data program that are going on in places, and if it's not in place, they're piloting one today here, because they understand that to capture the value from this data, they will need some very sophisticated analytics. And to meet the demand, IBM has been very much investing in this area. We've invested more than $24 billion, including about $17 billion on more than about 30 acquisitions just over the past 5 years. And we also have 15,000 analytics consultants and 400 mathematicians. And 2/3 of IBM research's work here in Almaden and the 11 other IBM research centers around the world is now devoted to data analytics and cognitive computing. So we are also kind of putting our money where our mouth is, if you will, in this new world. And I think unlike the computing model that we've all known and, you know, for the past 50 years or so, cognitive systems are not programmable. Not programmable. They learn, and we engage with them in very, very different, much more collaborative ways. In fact, 3 years ago, you may recall that we had an IBM system, we still do, called Watson, named after our founder. And it defeated the two all-time champions on the television quiz show Jeopardy! And I'm sure many of you have seen that. And we've been training Watson ever since that Jeopardy! Game in medicine and finance, in retail, and in other areas. So beyond just winning and beating those all-time champions, we're putting it to real work, right? It's helping to solve problems here. And earlier this year, we actually created, we were speaking at this at our table, the new Watson Group. And we actually put another $1 billion into that group, and about 2,000 IBMers, professionals. They set up shop in Silicon Alley, that's in New York City, Lower Manhattan. And some of you may have already announced or seen the announcement last week that we also are partnering with the New York Genome Center and gathering where we are partnering to use actually Watson's capabilities to help sequence DNA for the treatment of brain cancer. So we're putting Watson to work. And to analyze just a single brain tumor, doctors would have to sequence 800 billion base pairs of DNA. Obviously not humanly possible to keep all of that in your mind. So Watson can actually sequence 75 million base pairs in 1 second. And so that makes it very ideal for very heavy, data-heavy work in fields like medical research. So Watson and cognitive computing, that we see both of those as having a very great potential for helping human beings actually look at and make some intelligent use of the great new natural resource that is at their fingertips now, data. So data. I have to tell you, I actually did get my degree in operations research. So starting out at the farm stand when my grandfather used to say, sell these things, and I said, well, if it's $2.50 and they give me a 5, what do I do? And he said, figure it out. I think that was the start of math, which went into operations research. And I remember way back when I first started with IBM back in 1975, I thought I'm going to help, reinvent the company with operations research. And so my management team let me dabble with it for a bit, and of course it didn't go very far. But two things that I learned back then that I never forgot. The first was that the world was a lot simpler then, a lot simpler. And so when I would go to a general manager and I talk about doing some analytics that could help predict better, provide insight here, their reaction was, well, it's my gut and my experience. I don't need this statistics. And when I thought about it, the world did move a lot slower. So you had time to kind of figure it out, right? It was simpler. And by the time you figured it out, you still had time enough to go do something about it. Not today. Not today. How many times is the world changing on us just in our own lifetime? It's accelerating in its speed of change. It's more complex. And so yes, you still use your gut and your experience, but you also base it on more fact-based analysis, right? The second thing I learned is I love Monte Carlo simulation models, but not everybody did. So you have got to be able to make it consumable. Speak the language of the business. Be a T-shaped person. Be a T-shaped person. And so one of the things, all these years later, I now have another analytics department, my team that is providing all of the analytics for IBM internally now. And we've created this new role that we've all talked about, data scientist. And the data scientist does straddle the world of business and the statisticians, the analysts. And helping to speak that language, translate between the two, bringing them together, knowing what questions to ask, knowing how to draw that insight, right, is really where these T-shaped skills come into being. Now you'll hear, I think, tomorrow from one of my colleagues, Martin. Martin, are you speaking tomorrow? You spoke today, so Martin Fleming, he's helped create this data scientist. But it's a perfect example of the T-shaped person. And we're going to need it now more than ever. Because as I said, making these decisions real time with all of this data, which is not just your structured data, it's unstructured data coming at you in huge volumes, right? You're going to need to be able to translate that. So it's a perfect example, and this world of data is just going to grow on us. The second area I want to talk about for a moment is cloud. That's the next big thing that is happening here. And you know, the world's businesses, as they deploy mobile and social and whatnot and capture more and more of this data, they're contributed to enormous growth in cloud. And cloud computing offers a very flexible platform where capacity can be added very, very quickly, and applications are very easy to access for not only employees but also for clients. And we see cloud again as a second major shift that is going on in the world. And it's going to continue to accelerate, and it's going to have a huge impact, not just for developers and technologists having access to capability on the cloud, but also for leaders in business, in higher education, and in government. Now, North Carolina State, for example, I think several years ago launched what they call the Virtual Computing Lab, and a cloud computing platform approach, if you will, to move very physical computational capability for students and researchers into shared environments here. And initially, they set it up just for use across the university, but very soon, NC State opened it up to provide students all across North Carolina with access to education resources over the internet. So kids in Durham, for example, the inner city schools could go online and access Alice programming software, for example. And also, NC State is not only enabling its own students, but it is expanding its mission to K through 12 students and students all across North Carolina as well. So, you know, this is the type of innovation that cloud technology can enable in a very economical way, opening up access, opening up capability to a much broader set of participants. Here too at IBM, we've been very much shifting and refocusing our efforts and expanding them around cloud. And we have made, again, major investments in acquisitions in this space, and also committed to move more than $1 billion of investment in opening and staffing some of the new data centers located around the world for specific cloud implementations. Again, like data, I think cloud is changing how our clients use technology. And it is a rapid fundamental shift that is changing the economics of how IT is delivered. In fact, we talk about it as reinventing enterprise IT for the cloud. So that's data, first major shift, cloud, second one. Now, the third area is what we refer to as systems of engagement. Systems of engagement. Think of mobile, social, right, when you think about that. So the way that our customers and our own workers, people who work in our businesses, in our institutions, engage with our organizations is undergoing some profound change. And I know you see this every single day, especially, I think, if you work at a university with the students there. Social and mobile technologies have changed how worlds, how things work, and how we as humans interact with each other and also with organizations. And it also changes their expectations of how they want to work with organizations and with each other. In fact, 70% of the people who contact a company via social media today actually expect a response within 5 minutes. They do. And if you don't respond, they'll go someplace else. Right? They'll go someplace else. And nearly 80% of adult smartphone users keep their phones with them an average of 22 hours a day. Do you sleep with your phones? I know Nick does. Now, Right. 22 hours a day. Well, our customers are responding to these trends, and it is again changing their technology strategies and their investments. Nearly 60% of companies now expect to devote more than a quarter of their IT spending to these new systems of engagement by 2016. And this is why IBM is investing heavily, again, in social and mobile technologies and skills. And we're also transforming inside of IBM to empower employees through social and mobile engagement. We are a huge organization, 400,000 people around the world. And I can tell you that mobile and social are making a phenomenal change in how we operate. We have 4 generations of IBMers. And the millennials are really pushing those of us who started like me in earlier eras to do things in very new ways. And let me give you just one quick example. Again, we spoke about this at our table. Last year we started a program which we call iFund IT. iFund IT. It's patterned after Kickstarter, and we provided an initial investment to support the development of internal tech projects. And instead of having an investment review council or review board decide what would get funded, we had employees rank and evaluate the projects that were submitted. And it turned out to be a huge success. We had about 160 different projects submitted from employees in 30 countries around the world. And in fact, the program was so powerful that we are expanding it this year and bringing in some 50 interns this summer to help build apps that are selected from this next round of funding. Very social, very, collaborative in terms of how they're going to be building new capabilities using these new tools. So just one example of how social and mobile networks and new systems of engagements, again, are transforming how we work. And again, I am sure you're all seeing some very, very similar things happening in your organizations. So data, cloud, engagement. 3 phenomenons that are happening out there that are major shifts, and they're all happening at the same time. And that, I think, is what is so different and unique about it. It is the confluence of these shifts that are on the agenda of every leader I talk to today, and in any industry that I talk to. So those 3 areas. One last thought to share, if I could here. Let me shift gears a little bit and close with a couple of thoughts on the implications of all of this for the next generation. What are the skills that will be in demand? What kind of leaders and what kind of thinkers do we need to exploit these new capabilities? Well, I think the first is obvious from a lot of what we've talked about here already. And some of you remember that very famous scene in The Graduate when Dustin Hoffman's character had just graduated from college, and he's contemplating what to do with his future. And a friend of his father's tells him, "I've got one word for you. Are you listening?" Plastics. Exactly. Plastics. So what if I had to give you the one word for a promising area today? What would it be? Analytics, exactly, right? Analytics. Again, there will be more than 4 million big data jobs by 2015. Just incredible growth in this space. And that's why, again, IBM is partnering with about 1,000 universities around the world to teach data science. We want to lead in the age of analytics. And we are seeing tremendous demand for these skills, T-shaped skills, who can cross the world of business and the statisticians. And our clients are looking for these. We've also, as I said, been developing some of our own data scientists, and will continue to do that. So I think that's an enormous opportunity here. Again, the second point I'd like to make is, another type of skill is being collaborative. We talked about this again at our table today, collaborative leaders. I always, when I in my day job on transformation, I think about the world I grew up in the 20th century, which was very much a command and control. You know, I got there the first day at work, and I had a whole pile of red books on my desk, and I was told to read them, which I did, you know, before I actually started in projects. Different world today, different world. You know, you want to come in, you want to hit the ground running. You know, this notion of being able to share the best of everybody's thinking here. A few years ago, in one of my endeavors working with the economic development teams in New York State, we had a very similar, in a way, kickoff of a meeting where we brought together academic leaders from around the state as well as businesses, and we brought people together to look for opportunities to stimulate the great success we've had in creating the Nanotech Center in Albany. So we had something where we brought industry and businesses together and created this phenomenal capability. Why couldn't we expand that? Why couldn't we replicate that? And so we brought these folks together. And it was interesting because I would go around and I would talk with these folks. It was the first time most of them had met each other. They didn't necessarily work and see each other in the same circles here. And it took a while for us to get comfortable to speak the same language. But when we did, the phenomenal breakthrough thinking that occurred was just exciting. Just exciting. And so it takes, I always say, call the meeting. This is what we've done here. Call the meeting. Bring people together. You need to be able to listen to each other. I think listening is one of the two great lost arts in the world. Writing is the second one. But listen to each other. So often we're thinking about what I'm going to say, you know? I'm not listening to what you're saying. And then helping people to openly share their ideas. Because in the world of command and control is what I knew. It was what I knew. And I didn't necessarily want to share it with you. You might take credit for it, right? Not today. It's a very collaborative world. Listen, openly share. And when you get the best of everybody's thinking, that no matter how diverse their perspective might be from, that is exactly where you get the breakthrough. You know, sometimes people say, you're looking for consensus. Consensus is the least common denominator. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the best of everyone's thinking. So we've called the meeting here, and that's exactly what we're looking for. And I think the next 2 days are going to be unbelievably breakthrough in many, many different ways. I think the last thought I have here is you have to also be willing to continuously reinvent yourself in this new world. Be willing to continuously reinvent yourself. And as you heard, I've been in IBM a long, long time. And as I said, you know, when I joined the company in the mid-'70s, the technology shifts were very gradual back then. A big thing came about maybe once every decade, and you had time to understand it, to plan to how to deal with that change, and then make it happen here. But as I said earlier, everything is accelerating tremendously. And so if we're not continuously looking ahead, predicting, prescribing what's going to happen here, and reinvent our skills and our capabilities, we will miss out. And so I think, you know, coming out of college, you need to be equipped not only with expertise in your chosen discipline, but with a hunger to keep learning. Because those skills that you will need in 5 years will quite likely be much different than what you had to learn in the past. And in today's world, if you resist change, you very quickly become obsolete. If you embrace change, you survive. If you initiate change, you lead. you lead. So, data-driven, collaborative, change experts, change agents. These are the types of leaders that we need to develop, and I commend and just thank you for all being here with us to focus on this challenge together. Come up with ideas, share your expertise and experience with each other. And I have to tell you, Almaden here is just a magical place to do this, and hopefully you've had that kind of vibe when you walked into the building here. We have lots of big thinkers and big ideas. So I know you'll have a very productive dialogue while you're here. And I am sorry I have to leave. I'm heading to Australia, and I got to catch the midnight flight from somewhere here in California. But I look forward to the great reports coming back on that, and for you to all hear about and discuss more about what we can do together to face the challenges of the world ahead of us. Thank you all very much.